Hey all, my name is Aditya. I am the head of mobile engineering here at Keyri, and in this video I'm going to be giving you a brief tutorial on how to integrate Auth0 with Keyri's SDK. So to start, I'm simply going to create a new Xcode project. I'm going to leave the defaults here and just call it Auth0 Keyri. Of course, you can call it whatever you like. You will need the bundle ID in a later step, so please keep that in mind. Of course, you can always access that in the project settings, and I'm going to leave Swift UI as the basic interface. Just find a good place for it, and we've created the application. Off screen, I am going to just initialize CocoaPods. You can do that using the documentation we've provided below via CocoaPods. Okay, so this is the primary file where all of the important code for this integration lies. As you can see, we have imported both Auth0 and the Keyri pod, CocoaPod. Now we have access to both Auth0 and Keyri's SDKs. And in this file, we really just have one button. It's just called register or login. And what it's going to do is bring up the Auth0 web auth view. We can then pass in our credentials right there. And then it is going to take the credentials from Auth0, extract the refresh token, and pass the refresh token through Keyri back to our browser application, where the refresh token is then decrypted and allows the user to log in seamlessly. So to just go over real quick, we use the Auth0 web auth functionality. It's very important to use the offline access scope. That is what actually tells Auth0 to include a refresh token with the credentials. So make sure you include this flag as a scope. And then we simply have to take the result and, on the case of success, unwrap the credentials, grab the refresh token, and then with Keyri, all we have to do is initialize the object and use easy Keyri auth. Here we're leaving the public user ID blank, but you can actually include the user ID to get user analytics and things like that. We're going to have the app key that we got from the Keyri developer portal, and here we are simply configuring a JSON. So the JSON would look something like this, where we simply have one field called refresh token, and the actual token is the token, right? So that's really all we're doing. We simply have to escape the quotation marks. That's why the string looks a little crazy. This is also on the GitHub if you want to just copy and paste it. And then we simply print out the response. You can do something a little bit more involved if you want to show the user a confirmation pop-up or something like that. And of course, if there is an error, we simply print it out. And that's really it. That's really all that takes place in this situation. We also have a logout button here to clear the session, and that button, all we're really doing is calling WebAuth and telling Auth0 to clear the session. But that's not even necessary for the initial integration. This is really the core piece of the code right here. We are in the Auth0 portal. We're going to go ahead and just create a new application. Going to use the native setting. And as you can see here, Auth0 does provide some basic setup guides for how to actually set up the application itself. Because we're using a Swift project, I went into the iOS and macOS portion. So the two things to keep in mind here are the callback URLs and the logout URLs. These are really the only two things that we're going to need to configure on the Auth0 portal. They also show you a brief introduction into how to actually download the SDK. We're not going to go into that. It's really just either adding a Swift package or a CocoaPod. Now, in a separate application that I've already created, this is basically where we just add the callback URL and the logout URL. And as you saw in the previous page, it's really just the bundle ID followed by the identifier that you can see in the top left of your screen, the dev2dze. You just configure those two URLs, and then in the project, you simply add a client ID and domain URL. which you can find in the web portal as well. And then, of course, you use the CocoaPods, Auth0 and Keyri pod. Of course, you can also use Swift Package Manager. We've just kept them both in CocoaPods for this.
Okay, so now we're going to put this all together. I have my iPad on the screen. I'm just going to press the register or login button. I'm going to accept the prompt, and the Auth0 web login will pop up. I'm just going to go ahead and create a new account. We'll call it test123@gmail.com. I think I've already made a test123. I'll just do 456 just to be safe, and create a password that fits all of the requirements. And that should work. I'm going to go ahead and press sign up. And as you can see, the Keyri scanner is brought up. We're going to go through the entire flow. Let me just bring back the screen, and we scan the code. We get the prompt. We accept the prompt, and we are in. It's really that simple.